It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
From 529 plans to tax credits, student loans to good money habits, getting ready for college doesn't have to break the bank. We're going to unpack some practical steps that families can take to save money on education, save money for education, reduce student loan debt, and help students get started with the right financial habits. All that and more on this episode of The Wise Money Show.
I think I'd rather talk about college football. And
Yes.
you might want to listen.
Let's do that.
You might rather listen to college football. But anyway, if you don't know, we're in the backyard of Notre Dame, and let's just say, man, was it fun to watch them last year, and looking forward to seeing how this year turns out. But yeah, it was a good run last year. So if you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us 574-222-2000. At 574-222-2000 online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. Reach out to us that way as well. And then all over social media, though, you can find us, and most people engage with us that way. Just search The Wise Money Show. Yeah, kids are back in school, whether that's college. Kids have been on campus at Notre Dame for a few weeks now. And this city's the town just feels better in the fall. There's just more energy.
Students bring some life, don't they?
They do, and traffic and stuff too, and wait at restaurants. But yeah, so college is back, and K through 12, they're back for the most part. Josh, you've got kids in Michigan, and they start in early September, and they're probably going to move that to October or November pretty soon.
That's right.
Really extend things, but
That's a good idea.
so you send your kids off to school, whether that's K through 12 or to college, to gain skills and create opportunities. What you don't want is for them to create bad financial habits or leave with financial bondage, right? That's crazy. Of course, we don't want that. And yet, so many people, especially over the past several decades, that's what's happened, with great intentions, sending these kids off to school for opportunities and hope, and they leave financially not in great shape. And yeah, we want to change that. We want to change that. So we're going to get into the 529 plan, student loans, and a few other things. But before we do, financial planning.
Yeah, financial planning. If you are alive today, you have 6 areas to your financial life. And you might argue, well, maybe there's more than 6 areas, or there's some sub areas within those areas. But really, we just look at 6 different areas. This would be we would tuck this in to retirement planning. And when you look at the great goals of life, for most people, it is setting aside some assets so that you can at some point in time be financially independent, and so that work is optional and retirement is affordable. So that's one of the great goals of life. But before you get there, if you have children, typically one of the goals is to figure out in some way, shape, or form, how do we get them educated beyond high school? And that can be one of the most difficult decisions that you make in your entire life, because when you have the children, you're not peaking out financially. You're not maxing out, right? You're still climbing the mountain, and there's still upside and room to grow. So you say, well, what do we do now? How do we get started? Is there something that we should start now that we just had a baby that was born and do for the next 18 years? Mm-hmm. And then as you go, you're going to learn things about your children and about the schools that they go to, the schools that they might want to attend. And you're going to have some decisions to make, and you're going to say, "Hey, it's pretty easy in our community. You can say we're going to educate the kids at a very reason. If price is the tail that wags the education dog, then we're going to send them to IUSB. They're going to live at home, and it's going to be very inexpensive. We're not going to have any debt." Or you can say, "No, the most important thing to us is to have this college experience. I would put in air quotes, and we're willing to do whatever it takes. So we'll send them wherever they want to go. They're going to have this experience, and whatever expenses that are incurred, we'll just take them on, whether we're prepared for it financially and able to write a check, or whether we need to use some sort of debt in order to get it done. And so when you look at that goal, it's a very, very tricky goal. And that's where I look at this and I say, if you've ever looked at how do I achieve this, to me, the question that I would want you to answer is, how does this impact my other goals? Which is why you want to look at the 6 areas of financial planning and have a financial planner walking this path with you to help you be objective and say, hey, if I want to take this approach with my student, it's going to push back the time that I could be done working by 5 years or not.
Yeah. Do you know what the ramifications are for the help? Man, I wish I could bottle up everything you just said and go hit play for like all of my peers, because I don't know if you've gotten to this point yet, Mike. Maybe you're still a year or two out, but we've reached that age where all of our friends, all of our peers and everything, every time we get together, the college question comes up, because we've all got, upperclassmen in high school and everyone's starting to think about college and what comes next and what kind of visits have you done and all of this. Everyone's sort of comparing notes. And it really does remind me of a lot of people as they get close to retirement. The same thing happens. When you're getting within sight of the finish line on a major goal like this, everyone wants to start comparing notes and make sure, am I doing the right things? Have I done the work up to this point to make this goal achievable? And what a lot of people don't recognize, as you just kind of pointed out, Kevin, is this goal for college expenses or educating your kids sometimes can be in competition for the resources that it's going to take for you to retire someday. And just the simple fact that college comes earlier than retirement means that it has the potential to gobble up resources that really are needed further down the road, and you don't even realize it. And so I agree. A lot of times college planning and retirement planning, they get merged together within the financial plan because they are these major accumulation goals that you can't just save up for. You need to grow assets to be able to achieve these types of goals. You're not going to just show up the year before retirement or the year before college and say, okay, let's start planning.
Yeah, it doesn't happen by accident.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think of these, you refer to it, Kevin, as one of the great goals in life, and that'd be an interesting list to review together. But of course, anytime you have competing goals, a financial plan is really the only way that you sort out which goals am I going to fund, which ones am I going to have to modify, which ones might have to go on the back burner and hope for some better results or better opportunities further down the road.
Yeah, but think about it, right? College, sending kids off to school or helping with that in any way is going to impact your cash flow and your savings, so present financial position. The kids are going to be taking stuff with them off to wherever they're going, or they're going to be driving or whatever. So protection planning, they're going to have health insurance needs when they're there as they become adolescents or young adults. So that's protection planning. Tax planning, we're going to talk a lot about, so it's going to impact that. Investment planning, investing within a 529 plan, or how you save up and invest those dollars, it's extremely complicated with college. It's not like retirement. Retirement's going to last a couple decades. College, let's hope it doesn't last a couple decades, okay? It's going to last a lot shorter. How do you invest for that? Retirement planning, that's sort of where that long-term plan gets tucked in, and then estate planning as well. College planning touches all 6 areas of your financial life. And if you are, like we talked about, wanting to help with this great goal of life, if you don't, that's okay. That's no problem and no shame. If you do, proactive, plan ahead. It's not going to happen by accident, and you've got to look at all 6 areas of your financial life.
Yep. So. And it's something that you need to reconcile with your spouse as well. If you are married, you may have very different visions for what it looks like to help your kids with college. And getting those 2 visions for this goal to be merged together into one plan is really crucial. And sometimes, that really does require a financial coach to be able to help you find the commonalities, find the common ground, and move forward together.
What are the commonalities when it comes to college planning? What vehicle are you going to save up into? 529 plan, we're going to talk about that. Are student loans something that you use? How do you use them responsibly? We'll talk about that as well. Tax credits, what needs to be on your radar? How do you plan for those? And then how do you set these kids up for financial opportunity and as opposed to bondage? We're helping with all that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern, Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning. Also on podcasts at the same time, but also on a couple local radio stations at the same time as well, which is why the content's broken up the way that it is. It's a talk show, so there's banter, we meander, we go off track and all that sort of stuff, but all to help you take your next wise step in your financial life. If you're looking for more concentrated content that applies directly to one financial concept from a planning perspective, we've got that for you as well right here on this channel. Next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, we appreciate it as well. Leave comments about your college experience, your college planning, your savings goals, those sorts of things. Want to hear that from you as well. All right. Well, that's one segment down. let's get into the doctrine.
Now we should check out the outline a little bit.
Where we needed to go?
Not even close.
That's
We
awesome.
didn't get into the
So I
529
think,
plan.
one of the interesting things as I think about it, someday we should talk about how to even have family meetings about this stuff, because we as a family have done a great job of what I would call drive-by financial meetings. And you say, well, what does that mean? It means it was in a conversation with most of the key players in the room as someone was going from point A to point B, and what was said and what was heard are multiple different things. And it in our family, it evolved from, hey, I actually couldn't tell you, and I think you could probably have 5 different definitions of what we committed to. What the parents committed to and what the kids were committed to, because it was somewhere between, hey, we'll pay half of it wherever you want to go, to we'll pay half of it, and if you get a scholarship, we'll pay whatever you earned. We'll pay you whatever you earn in a scholarship. So that ends up with us paying 100%. And so it just evolved and morphed, and it was, and there aren't deadlines for this stuff. It's easier with your financial life if they're, April 15th, okay, drop dead April 15th. Well, kinda, but it's October 15th, drop dead. Okay, October 15th, it's got to be done. And there are some other dates with things, but, it's not with this.
Well, I think that's unique with college because you've got to involve the student at some point as well. But I would also say, Kevin, in your story and in the 3 of ours, different from yours, there's not regular financial planning meetings. It's cobbler's kids without shoes sort of thing. But to prevent the drive-by financial planning for you, working with your certified financial planner, so that there's carved out time and there's space for you guys to work on this and get on the same page. Now, you're likely not going to bring your high school student into that meeting and all get on the same page, but at least you and your spouse will get on the same page with your planner, who can be communicating, hey, there's danger there if you go that route, or here's some calculations, this might be more feasible. So
right, and it's tricky if you have teenagers to nail down exactly what they want to do.
Oh yeah.
Because we went from thinking, well, our oldest is going to go to college when he graduates, and he decided the spring of his junior year he was going in the Army. Well, that changed everything.
And even then, I bet it was, really? Is she sure? A year probably goes by before you're like, is he really going to do this? Like, we've got to have plan B ready just in case, because that might sound good.
Yeah, you have to have plan B, C, and D ready, because they're a little bit volatile as teenagers, and so yeah.
College, planning for college is So even though I joke and like, we're nowhere near where we intended to go with the outline, like planning for college is just, it is unique. It is complicated. So, all right, we'll get into the 529 plan here. So talk about it, define it, and talk through strategies. Here we go. If you have a goal for helping your kids or grandkids with college, saving up and deciding what vehicle, what account to use when you're saving up is a crucial component of that decision. We're going to help you with what our go-to suggestion is. That and more right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at. We are there, so we'll search the Wise Money Show. I have no idea if Dave Ramsey's still talking about the educational IRA. I think he is, but he promoted that thing well past its usefulness, right? And he speaks to the masses. He does not do financial planning. He preaches principles, and many of those principles are fantastic. But he doesn't ever sit down one-on-one or one-on-two and talk through true, actual financial planning in the trenches. And so, therefore, his go-to college savings plan, educational IRA, is just not applicable for most people. The go-to college savings plan, if you're saving up for college specifically for that goal, and you don't want a multi-purpose Swiss Army knife, if it's for that goal, the 529 plan is where you need to look first. Might not be appropriate for everyone, but I would start there.
Well, and that might be confusing because, man, it has become more of a Swiss Army knife itself these days, simply because, when they first came out, it really was a college savings vehicle. You save up, and it allows you to shelter dollars that you want to grow for these later years when your kids are into college, get it invested, and as it's growing tax deferred or maybe even tax free as long as you use the money for college expenses. But over the years, a whole series of tax law changes have come through that have expanded the ways that you can use a 529 plan. So if you're sitting here thinking, boy, my kids are still in elementary school and they're going to a private Christian college in the community here or something, you might be using a 529 plan. Yep. It's not for you right now, a college-only vehicle. But since this episode is about college planning, then we do need to recognize that a 529 plan is one of the best tools for accumulating a pool of resources that you can use to help educate your kids when they get to college or even beyond college. It could be grad school. It could be a certificate, like a professional certificate program, that sort of thing.
Here's how it works. When you save up into the 529 plan, your contributions at a federal level are not deductible. So it's not like a pre-tax 401k. From a federal level, your contributions don't help you. All of the investment activity, so capital gains or dividends or the growth within that 529 plan is sheltered from tax. It doesn't land on your tax return. That is a bigger deal. It's always been a big deal. It's a bigger deal right now because of so many tax credits that are out there, or tax benefits, deductions that are out there that go away if your income's too high. They're phased out. And we're going to talk about some here in just a second. The fact that the investment experience from the 529 plan doesn't land on your tax return every year, it's going to help you with those benefits. And then when you withdraw these dollars from a 529 plan for qualified educational expenses, and Josh, you hit it right on the head. It used to be college. Well, now it's broader. There's more, but still, think college or qualified educational expenses. We'll hit a list of those here in just a second. Those withdrawals come out tax-free. All the growth, tax-free. So it's similar to a Roth IRA. Now, the other reason, so that's enough to love about the 529 plan. But to add on top of that, your state might have a state tax incentive for you to save up to make a contribution into your state's 529 plan. And here in Indiana, where we're recording, and I think the very best state tax benefit of all the 50 states, it's a 20% tax credit on the first $7,500 that you contribute. That's incredible. It's $1,500 tax benefit. In Michigan, just a mile or two away, it's a deduction on the first $10,000 that you contribute, but that's $425 of tax benefit. So those are meaningful benefits on the way in, on your contributions, and then on top of that, you get all those federal benefits. That's a big deal. So one thing when we're talking about states, one of the common questions with 529 plans is, so I need to use the state's plan where my kid's going to go to school? No. You can use Indiana's plan if you live in Indiana and your child can go to Florida. My sophomore, she wants to go to Florida for whatever reason. I think the weather, which is a terrible place or a terrible decision to make just about the weather. That's going to determine where to go to school. But your child, you don't need to pick or predict where my child's going to go to school and pick that state. Pick the state that you live in, that you pay taxes in, if there's a state tax benefit there.
Yeah, and so when you think about that, you say, well, how do I make a decision? Which state do I use? Because I hear Indiana's got this great benefit. It only works if you pay taxes in that state.
Yeah.
So something to think about. It can be used by parents, grandparents, friends, whomever. You can claim that, but you have to pay income tax in the state of Indiana. So if you pay income tax in the state of Indiana, think state income tax. There's also a county income tax in Indiana, so you can't get relief from that, but it will absorb your state income tax. So what does that mean? It means that I might live in Michigan but pay taxes in Indiana. You're eligible.
Yeah.
And also don't overlook, it's possible that your student would be eligible to contribute some money to a 529 plan. So if you're listening today and you pay taxes in the state of Indiana, I would encourage you, make sure you've got a 529 plan open. Make sure your student has a 529 plan open, because there's some after-the-facts tax planning that you can now do up until April 15th.
Yep.
to
But the account needs to be open during the calendar year. And
Right.
I actually think the student, other people can contribute to one 529 plan. It doesn't need to be their own and still get the tax benefit. But it gets confusing. So actually, we're getting a little bit deep, and you might already be saying, wait a second, that doesn't quite make sense. And there again, working with your CFP who understands the rules and can help you navigate.
Well, yeah, in the spirit of things that don't make sense, in Indiana, I can put it in this year and pull it out, right? It's the hokey pokey. In Michigan, if I put it in this year and pull it out, I don't get the deduction.
Yeah,
They
deduction.
wash each other out essentially.
Right.
What are the things? This is another common question with 529 plans. You get this all the time, every year from a plethora of people. Hey, can I use this for the for the 529 plan? What are the types of things?
Well, first of all, that question is one to talk about with your certified financial planner and to check up on every time you're about to spend some money out of the plan, because these rules have been changing. But the most obvious ones are, this is for college expenses. If you're saving up for your kids' college education, things like tuition and fees, some of the required materials that go into their coursework, like books, or maybe they're required to have certain supplies for some lab class that they're taking, or maybe they're required to have a laptop. Whatever those required equipment or tools are, that's included. Room and board is a big one. Yep. That's expensive. It's not the country club type stuff, though, right? Your intramural fees and the fun clubs that you might join. You can't pull money out of your 529 plan to fund your spring break trip.
Yep.
Right? So it is the true educational costs that go into the college experience for the kids, but it's coming out tax-free. So all that growth that had been accumulating maybe over years can avoid the tax man entirely, as long as you're using the funds appropriately.
Okay, a couple other common questions. Computers, and this has been a common question because it's been on again, off again, on again, off again. They made it permanent. A computer is a qualified educational expense for college only. This, even though they've expanded the 529 to have more usage for K through 12, even in the OBBBA, they've expanded the uses for K through 12. A computer for K through 12 is not eligible as a qualified educational expense, but for college it is. So is internet access as well. So be aware of that. What about standardized tests? So taking the SAT, taking the ACT, that sort of thing. Used to be no with the OBBBA. Now that answer is yes. What about transportation? Again, my oldest says she wants to go to Florida. No, it's not happening. But what if she gets her way or just says, I'm my own person, I'm doing this? The flight or the drive down, she can't go to college there without that transportation. So in one essence, it's required. It is not a qualified educational expense. Okay, what about a huge campus like Michigan State where I went and you need busing and all that sort of stuff, or you need a bike? Is that qualified? No, it's not, because you can walk it corner to corner, and I did early in the mornings and in the winter, uphill both ways. So there's a lot. Student loans. Oftentimes we get this question: I want my child to have some responsibility or have some ownership. Let's have them get the loans, but we'll just use the 529 plan later. Nah, it doesn't really work that way. Okay, you can use a one-time withdrawal from a 529 plan to pay down up to, I believe it's $10,000 of student loans. But for many states, that's not a qualified expense. So a lot of rules with what you can use the 529 plan for. Work with your CFP on that. Got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. There's no way to get through a full list.
There's more to it than I thought, because the other thing is you have to match up the distributions in the year of the expenses, which you kind of just said.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Not like an HSA where you can
shoebox.
reimburse yourself later.
All right, we can. So Rob Perugini, thank you. We're not going to be able to say everything. So we can say a little bit more, just really, really quick to sweep it, and then we'll hit tax deductions. And maybe this is good. We'll do a flyover of the American Opportunity Tax Credit and Lifetime Learning Credit, and then we can get into the student loans. And we're not going to get too deep in the student loans. We probably will need to do a show devoted to them, but I really would still like to have the last segment talking about financial habits. So
do you want to clean it up?
I can.
That seems like it would make the most sense.
Yep. And Lindsay, I'm going to send you a link right now. Or do you want me to put it in the outline? To put in the show notes?
Either way. I'll hear it on here. So.
I will send it to you right meow.
I'm telling you, I'm looking at how the American Opportunity Tax Credit works.
Are you getting mad?
I quit.
And I know, like, you either tap out or rage. And I don't know what happened, but it's rage in me. Why? Why so complicated?
Well, I think you just need to go back to your anger management classes, Mike.
This is my anger
We'll
management.
sponsor you, actually. Will you just do that?
And I think you can pull money out of your 529 plan to pay for that.
No, here's what it is. Because
Can you imagine?
it's not. Listen,
That might be where we're headed as a society.
Josh, you hit it, because I just if I'm on the couch, it's not the American Opportunity Tax Credit that has me enraged. It is what's the tax code going to look like in 5 years, or in 10 years, or in 15 years, or in 20 years? At the rate we're going, this thing is.
I know.
It is already. It's a laughing stock,
I know.
It's Frankenstein's monster, and I just don't know where this is going to go.
And you basically have all these various constituency groups that are either, cheering for or raging against what just got passed in the OBBBBA, and
That's the best I've heard.
And so you say, well, who's going to be happy? No one's going to be happy. But if you said, is there anything uniform about the tax code? So you could say, hey, some of these numbers align. Like, for this one, your income limits, are 160 to 180 for the phase out. Does that match what, for instance, like a Roth IRA would be, or for anything else? And you're like, no, can it just be? Can't we make this simple?
I know.
But
I know.
Anyway, no one asked me.
Yeah, and no one cares about my belly aching either. So it's not.
That's
not
very
helpful.
true.
Don't tell people your problems. 80% don't care, and
I know.
20% are glad you have them.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And but planning is what is the path through it. So
But you're right.
that's the solution.
Especially with this one, because it's not. I mean, you said, "Hey, tax deferral is very powerful," and you might be in your 30s with 3 little kids right now, and thinking, well, I'm not going to be north of 180. And then you get to your 40s with 3 teenagers and you say, oh, wow, I got a raise, I got a promotion, I'm doing something different, I'm in a different career, I have a different opportunity, my spouse is doing something, and all of a sudden we woke up and we're north of 180.
Right.
Now what do we do?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
I mean, these are good problems to have. I mean, that's what you want. But if you're planning on some of this stuff, it's a little tricky.
Yep. All right, third segment. Here we go. Taking advantage of the tax credits available when you've got kids in college. They're familiar names, but they're harder to achieve. They're harder to get, and it's going to require some planning. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show and subscribe to it there. Rate the program there as well. We appreciate it. Talking about college planning, kids are back in school, and the harsh reality of needing to pay for college is right there on the doorstep for many of you. And it's the ever reminder of, oh, this child's starting 5th grade. At some point, they're going to be going to college. Are we going to be ready? We're helping with that. And just kind of sweeping the sidewalks here of the 529 plan. We can't tell you all the details. It would be 3 shows, and no one would listen to it. It's too complicated. Did leave a link in the show notes here in the YouTube channel with a longer list of, including some of the new changes within the OBBBBBBA, right,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you said that well, of the changes, what you can use the 529 plan for or not. So make sure you go check that out. But the exclamation point is work with your certified financial planner along the way so that you're sheltering that money and so that you're saving up the right amount. But certainly as you're flipping the switch and starting to use these dollars, ensuring that you're using it for the right purposes. Because one other thing, oh gosh, I can't believe we almost forgot to mention this. You've got multiple kids or multiple grandkids, and you've got a 529 plan in one person's name, and now you've got college expenses starting for a second child or second grandchild. You would think logically, well, it's college expenses, I'll just keep using it. No, you've got to pull out, you've got to align the withdrawal from the 529 plan for the student that is listed on the 529 plan for their college expenses. It needs to align.
And you can only have one student on each 529 plan
Correct.
as well. That's the key. So you may have to get to a point where you're taking one large 529 plan that you've been funding along the way and split it into multiple accounts, which you can do once a year as well. Changing the beneficiary is what that maneuver is called.
One of the things we love about the 529 plan is the tax credits and tax benefits within your state. But there's more tax planning that comes with college, and that is just making sure that you optimize and maximize the actual college tax credits available within the tax code. You might be familiar with these: American Opportunity Tax Credit and Lifetime Learning Credit. Well, which one's better? How do they work? Let's get into that.
Well, for starters, when you hear the phrase credit, tax credit, your ears always should perk up. We always pause and we just give extra attention to tax credits, because it literally is after you've done all the calculating of what your tax bill is supposed to be, then tax credits start erasing some of the tax itself. It's better than tax deductions or tax write-offs that we would often think of, which really just reduce your income that you're going to pay tax on. So a tax credit, similar to if throughout the years you've been taking a child tax credit, the government's giving you dollars right off your tax bill just because your kids are under age 17. Now that they're into college, there are some goodies that apply there as well. And the American Opportunity Tax Credit is the larger of the two. It's also, more flexible in the sense of it can even create a tax refund for you. Whereas the Lifetime Learning Credit, the second of the two college credits, can only just take your tax bill down to 0. It can't take you into negative territory. So that's a difference between the two. But there are limitations on how high your income can go. This is a really important planning consideration. But the way that the American Opportunity Tax Credit works is the first $2,000 of qualified expenses that you have for college, you can have 100% credit for. So literally you paid out $2,000 for college expenses and the government's going to give it right back to you on your tax return if you qualify. The next $2,000 that you spend, they'll give you 25 cents on the dollar, or a 25% credit there. So $2,000 times 25%, that's another $500 that you could get from this American Opportunity Credit for a grand total of up to $2,500. That's a big deal, especially if you just came out of the high school years where you were getting child tax credits. Those went away. If they can then quickly be replaced with some college credits, it can help protect your tax return from swinging pretty wildly. Because if you think about it, when your kids are under age 17, if you could take a $2,000 child tax credit, literally your tax bill is $2,000 less until it goes away, and all of a sudden, instantly, your tax bill jumps right back up by $2,000.
Yep.
That can really swing someone's tax return. It can take them from being in refund mode to owing, and they don't even always see it coming. So the point in all of this, any tax credits, you want to know, what does it take for me to be eligible for this? What can I do to impact or influence my tax picture to make myself be eligible if it's possible?
Right, and you want to understand, I mean, this is where, if this is a show about financial planning, tax planning is so important because you want to understand that. And the best picture I have of this is a client that came in, they were a prospective client, and they listened to us on the radio show for years, and they said, hey, we want some help. And they had a tax, they were pretty proud of themselves because their tax return, they had about a $7,000 refund, and they'd done a bunch of Roth IRA conversions in the previous year. So they did their conversions, and they had a big refund, and they were excited about that. Like, hey, we did a nice job. Well, what they didn't notice is that instead of that refund, they would have had about a $17,000 refund if they hadn't done that, because they had to pay back their advanced premium tax credits. So when you talk about this, when I start getting into college, all of a sudden, if I'm not dialed in, am I getting the tax credits that are available to me? What do I need to do to my income if there's any income manipulation that needs to be done to get these? Because if you're just bumping along through life and you give your stuff to your tax preparer, you get it back, and there's a good result, and you're like, sweet, this is great. Why are you happy with that result? And when is the day coming when you're going to get that return back and you're going to owe and be surprised?
I mean, here's an idea, and you guys know I love the Roth. For most of your career, contribute as much as you can to the Roth 401k. The 4 years that you've got that child in college, maybe flip that over to pre-tax to keep your adjusted gross income, modified adjusted gross income, below those phase-out thresholds for the American Opportunity Tax Credit and Lifetime Learning Credit, because those phase-out bands have not stretched at all. The American Opportunity Tax Credit, we looked it up before. I guessed 2006. It actually was introduced 2009, so it's close. Hasn't been around for that long, but still long enough to say, well, those income limits probably should have gone up to include more people. No, they've stayed the same. Fewer people are able to qualify for those tax benefits, tax credits each year, and it's going to be harder to do so if you're not doing tax planning.
Yeah, just to quantify what those thresholds are, it's $160,000 for a married couple. It's half that for a single individual, $80,000. So if your adjusted gross income or modified adjusted gross income goes above that level, you start to lose the credit until it's all gone. So you get to a phase out, essentially. So this is where much of tax planning really is about income control. How do I make sure that I'm not allowing myself to get too high on these various thresholds and then start losing tax benefits along the way?
Yep. American Opportunity Tax Credit is only for 4 years. Lifetime Learning, the name of that actually makes sense. So that could be grad school and so on. There is another credit out there that you need to be aware of. Josh, you mentioned the child tax credit, which is going from $2,000 to $2,200 this year. So that, I suppose, is good news. But the qualifying relative credit. So child tax credit, that goes away as soon as your child becomes an adult magically at age 17. That was your experience, right? These kids, they started doing their own laundry and paying for all their own stuff at 17.
Right.
No, you guys know I'm joking there. For whatever reason, you lose the child tax credit the year the child turns 17. But if they're still a dependent, then they can qualify as a qualifying relative, and you get a $500 tax credit instead. and your child going off to school, as long as they're a full-time student and under the age of 24, they can be a qualifying relative. Okay, so that's one other thing to be aware of. So think about it. If eligible for the American Opportunity Tax Credit, $2,500, assuming you've got $4,000 of tuition, plus this qualifying relative, that's $3,000 of tax credit. And like Josh said, like that's meaningful. It's a dollar for dollar reduction in your tax bill. You want to take advantage of that. You want to be able to maximize that. You want to optimize that. So having a vision for that, even if you're listening to this right now and you haven't yet started a family, or you've got young kiddos, having a vision for that, so you're saving in that 529 plan, so all of that growth is sheltered, and then being opportunistic and planning with your CFP in advance to stay below those phase outs. That'll help keep more dollars, tax dollars, or more of your dollars in your pocket. We got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right.
Okay.
Short break.
What do we need to do to clean it up?
Okay. I want to talk about financial habits that does definitely connect with student loans. I think the student loan discussion can be super short, super brief. Just 3 guardrails to mention, and then financial habits. So just be ready to share your unfiltered financial habit that you would suggest to a high school student or college student. What would you want to get started? I listed a couple. But, all right.
Okay.
Here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on the Wise Money YouTube channel. Go check it out. Just go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content, which is this show every single Saturday, but also Next Wise Step videos or other content that airs every single day of the work week. So lots of content there, over 1,500 videos, all designed to help you take your next wise step and talk through this maze of financial issues from a comprehensive perspective. So make sure you go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there. All right, so we're wrapping it up on college planning, and we'd be remiss to not mention student loans when talking about college planning. Now, it's not going to be a deep dive. We could do a full show on just student loans and the repayment structure or the differences between the two and federal loans versus private loans. We're going to avoid most of that because we're just going to hit the high level. When it comes to student loans, again, when it comes to sending your kids to college, you want them to go off and create skills and get opportunities. You don't want them to have financial bondage. So you have to be very, very careful with student loans. You just have to be careful. Use them as leverage as opposed to that bondage. So what are some guardrails to use student loans responsibly? Number 1, borrow as little as possible. And I mean that, as little as possible. Brother and I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Okay, I will. I love you. Both of us, we were going to school at the same time, and I remember this fork in the road where he was working, and so was I, and we were both working to try to not have to get student loans. And at one point, he just tapped out and was like, you know what? I think it would relieve some pressure if I just got this student loan. Well, he paid it off quick, but it was 2 years after college that he was working hard to pay off that loan, where I just sucked it up and I didn't borrow. So borrow as little as possible. Whether that means still you're borrowing $20,000 or it means you're borrowing nothing, borrow as little as possible. Second thing, make sure you're borrowing from the right types of loans. Federal loans the interest is a lot higher than what you'd think. You'd think that, student loans are nice loans. No, they are mean loans. They're mean. High interest rates, not very forgiving. But private loans can be even worse. So make sure you're working with your CFP and borrowing the right types of loans, okay? And then lastly, and this is up for debate, but as a guardrail, as a principle, pay them off as quickly as possible. Pay them off as quickly as possible. So borrow as little as you can, borrow the right types of loans, pay them off as quickly as possible. Those are the guardrails we'd share.
Yep. I think of student loans as a tool. So we're not saying, hey, we like this tool, or we don't like this tool, but I would be debt averse if at all possible. There are ways to get your debt repaid quickly. One of the ways, and personally, I borrowed as much as I could because I was in the Michigan Army National Guard and I had a student loan repayment program, which is if I could borrow money, the right type of money, they would pay it off. I think it was a total over 4 years. I was able to borrow like $3,000. And so you look at that and you're like,
That was a fortune back then, though.
It was. I think it was over 3 years, and then I finally tapped out, and I said, the administrative burden of doing this is not worth it because you had to, hop on one foot, tap your head and rub your belly and do all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not doing it. But you can have a lifetime benefit of $50,000 if you're in the Indiana National Guard. That's what I'm seeing online here. So there are alternative ways to get these paid off. But I would say if you get out of college with student loan debt, move as quickly as you can. Put that expense at the front of the line. When you think of prioritizing, get that paid off first because the freedom that you'll have once that's paid off is almost unimaginable. As we meet with folks in their 40s and even some in the 50s that still have student loan debt.
Yeah. I love your challenge to become or be or remain debt averse. Like have a bias against debt because it really is a form of bondage. And man, it's tough when you're 18 years old and people are waving money at you, and it would make life easier if you didn't have to work quite so hard during the summer. Maybe some of that hard-earned savings that you've accumulated, I'm taking it on a cool spring break, or I'm going to take a semester abroad and it's going to be a great life experience and all that. I can do that because I can borrow. For the rest of your life, people are going to be coming and waving money at you and saying, well, I'll gladly let you go into bondage here.
Yeah.
You can be my slave. That's great. I am your prisoner now, or you're my prisoner, really. I'm your prison guard. The point here, though, is that if you don't personally have some sort of a defense against, or a way to say no to the easy money that becomes really hard to pay back, then student loans might just be the very first step in a lifetime of borrowing and paying back, and you get into this negative rhythm in your financial life, and it's just hard because you're committing future income. You are obligating yourself down the road. It means that you're going to have to make sacrifices down the road because you didn't make them now as a student.
Yep.
And unfortunately, lenders make it really, really easy for you. There is a type of borrowing that, when I was a student, I was able to qualify for a little bit of subsidized loans, where the government is essentially paying the interest for you, so to speak, while you're in school. And at least then you're not just accumulating the debt and watching it snowball against you during the years that you're in school. Unsubsidized loans or traditional like private loans, as soon as you borrow it, the interest starts building, and you're moving in the wrong direction, unfortunately.
Student loans, it's a great segue into financial habits. We've got to talk about that as well. We're, again, talking about college education, and there's a lot of financial education going on at the exact same time. James Clear, author and habit expert, says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. So making sure that your students start with the right financial habits right as they start getting some financial resources and making some real life decisions, that is critical. Guys, what are some really quick financial habits that you would encourage either high school students as they start working or college students to be building early on?
Man, I'll confess to you that when I was in college, I had some horrible habits with money. I was hitting the ATM all the time and then using debit cards, maybe even writing some checks. And I wish I knew, I probably don't want to know, how many overdraft fees I had throughout college because I just didn't have true financial controls in place. I didn't have great record keeping. I honestly just looked at the bank account, and if there was money in it, then I was spending it. And
I wouldn't have thought that about you.
Yeah, I think God knew that I needed this career, this field for my own benefit because, the right habits can totally turn that around.
I think what you're speaking to is as soon as you start having some income and having some resources, some choice and flexibility with what to do with money, you need to have an operating system, a 3 bank account system that might feel like, oh, that's overkill. They're not even paying their own cell phone bill yet. You might be. But starting to have some visibility and tracking on where your money is flowing, and then beginning to save up for known upcoming expenses, whether that's spring break or whether that's a new car or something, starting to set money aside for known upcoming expenses, and then finally building that rainy day fund, that emergency fund. As an adult, that 3 bank account system feels a little bit more specific. As a college student or even a high school student with your first dollars, it's more principle based, and that is having awareness of the money that's coming in and going out every single month, so you don't have overdraft. You've got the right float. Saving up for known upcoming expenses like the fun things, the trips, but then also having that rainy day fund. The other habit I would start thinking about at that stage is saving up into a Roth, as opposed to Robinhood or buying Bitcoin or a meme stock or something like that. That fun stuff. Just start saving into a Roth. Building that habit of saving for your financial future and doing so in a tax-efficient way.
Yeah, I would encourage you add your children to your credit cards.
Yeah, start having them build that credit. And back in my day, the only way to do that was go get a free Frisbee or a T-shirt and sign up for your own credit card. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do that today. Mom and Dad, parents, you have a credit card. You can add your child to that family credit card, and it will start building their credit. It will. And then you can see what they're spending money on, and there's a little bit more clarity.
They will never see that piece of plastic, ever.
Yeah.
Their name will be on the account, but they...
Don't give them access to it?
No, I wouldn't give them access to it. If you do give them access... reduce the limit.
Yeah. All right. So work with your certified financial planner. College planning touches all 6 areas of your financial life. Work with your CFP on that. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.